it's reasonable to assume that there should be more SA companies here, and that's right. However, going forward, especially on some of the topics we'll uncover today, there's no reason why some exciting small companies from Ghana can really do well in South Africa, mostly in the agri-business space. There's no reason why not. There's some very exciting young brands now, which I think could do quite well. So we do want to increase the number of firms down there. That's investment. But don't forget there's trade between the two countries. So you might be a Ghanaian firm here. You don't have to be set up in South Africa, but you could be selling your products there. So if you're selling chocolate or coffee or shea butter products, honey perhaps, as long as you have a clear trade route into the various takers down there, that can be done, and perhaps that's an easier entry in. So we're going to be working very hard with young Ghanaian entrepreneurs to assist there. But I think the time now is actually quite good for young entrepreneurs, especially given, well, the advancement of technology in the last 5 years, maybe even 2 years, with the advent of artificial intelligence, the access to pay-as-you-go tech platforms to enable trading, say. It's really democratized markets globally. Long gone are the days where you have to be a big company with dedicated sales forces around the world to get your products into markets. Now, actually, it's nicely democratized, and there are various different channels to sell your products, which I think will assist smaller Ghanaian firms.
I see. So I mean, you believe that we're going to see a lot of good things in the coming years?
Well, why not? I'm, having lived here for 13 years, I've learned a few things in Ghana. I think the level of education is high. I think the tech-savvy young Ghanaians have shown a resilience. If you look at the startup environment in Ghana, when I came here 13 years ago, it was zero. There were no accelerators, hubs.
But now we're seeing some incubators and all of that.
Now there are quite a few. Some are better than others, but a couple of them are pretty good, and they're producing some decent small firms. The trick, of course, is to take those startups from surviving through a boot camp, getting some initial funding, to actually being able to play in their specific market for a period of time. And I think there we're pretty much untested. There aren't any firms, in my view, that have come through the system that have shown that they have the sustainability, but it's going to happen. So I think a combination of good education, tech-savvy young Ghanaians, a can-do attitude. I think if we take the current difficult economic environment, it's quite difficult to graduate from school and walk into a corporate job. It's quite tough, which then suggests to anyone, well, if you want to earn a living, perhaps you have to do it for yourself. So I think that's not a bad environment where you kind of have no choice. You simply have to do something. I think there's a bit of a hustle. You're required to take care of yourself. I like that. I think it develops a toughness, a resilience, which we need. If you want to make it as an entrepreneur, nothing really gets given to you for free. You need to go and, with your sharp elbows, knock people aside and earn your right to sit at the table. So, yes, I think the opportunities now are good, but it's going to require a lot of effort from the ecosystem, not just the individual entrepreneurs themselves, but looking at finance for these people. If you go to a bank and you have to pay over 30% for a loan, you simply can't start a business. Doesn't make sense. But there are avenues for young entrepreneurs to raise money. It might be through an equity partner, or if it's debt finance, through some of the aid agencies. There are programs which are geared towards entrepreneurial activity. So yes, I think in my 13 years, I'm investing through my private companies. I'm starting to deploy capital into projects which I haven't for the last 7 years. I've been circumspect, but I now see through some market dislocations, some wonderful opportunities to enter the market. So I'm starting to deploy capital into a few projects.
Okay, so there's some great potential in there. Tell us, what are some of the dominant products being exchanged between Ghana and South Africa? And if there are some gaps, just you can highlight some of the gaps you see as well.
Well, coming up from South Africa into Ghana, it's everything from services, from mining and engineering services to tech services, focused on the companies I've mentioned. It might be insurance and banking as well, where our companies play a massive role. But then, of course, products. If you just talk about ShopRite, just as one company, there's probably 20,000 different products that they bring in, literally. But there are other big distribution companies like Imperial, which is the biggest logistics company on the continent. Although it's a South African name, it's now owned by a Dubai company. But they distribute products to over 10,000 small business owners. Those are products, fast-moving consumable goods, from biscuits to water to drinks and other processed foods. So in terms of what we have now, it's a blend of services and products across all of the sectors, given that we do operate in and provide leadership in most of them. But I think going forward now, in education, I see a massive input from South African firms. So very recently, Advotech, which is a listed South African company, it's the biggest private education company. They launched their university here called Rosebank International University College. The launch was about 3 weeks ago. I think they, along with Ashesi, which has been a fantastic revelation in the Ghana tertiary space, I think this group is going to make some interesting inroads. So, we are going to be saying goodbye to some brands like ShopRite, but then enter people like Advotech through their Rosebank brand. And I alluded to Discovery Health. This is one of the most innovative global insurance companies. Forget about African. And their model is very new to Ghana. But over the next year or two, as they do their brand rollout and people understand the power of how they've entered this market, I think the Discovery business is going to revolutionize that space. So I think 2 new entrants, Discovery and Rosebank, in 2 different markets, will fill the gap from a couple of brands.
So Rosebank is also from South Africa?
Yes, part of Advotech. They're the biggest on the continent.
Wow.
Yes. And they launch now. They have launched and they're open
I
for
think
this academic.
I've seen them. Yeah, they are across the streets.
Opabia House?
Around Opabia House.
Just over the road from Stanbic Heights.
I've seen them. I've seen them there. So which sectors do you think are most underexplored in our trade relationship?
Well, I would say agriculture and agribusiness at large offers a massive opportunity. Whilst agriculture is a very strong and leading industry in South Africa, I think in Africa in general, but Ghana in particular, the agriculture space we know is underperforming horribly, and it shows in our inability to produce enough food for ourselves. So we are importing the majority of our foodstuffs, from rice to oil to basic daily requirements, which a lot of it can be produced here for local consumption.
Right.
But equally, more valuable products like shea, honey, coffee, these things can be exported. And I think there's a massive opportunity to be exploited there.
In agriculture.
In agriculture
Right.
in general. And that includes things like financing of agriculture. And it also relates to the supply of equipment and technology for agriculture. So it's the entire value chain that's required to make this happen. So this for me is very exciting. But if you talk about bigger business, because of course in agriculture that can be done small scale and should be done small scale. You can actually have quite a nice little business going. You don't have to be big. But on the bigger end of things, let's say mega projects for infrastructure. Roads, the road system is woeful in Ghana. So it's one thing having a business somewhere in a rural area. You could have quite a good business potentially. But if you don't have any good roads leading to your business, you can't get your product to market. And that's a reality in some parts of the country, sadly. And if it's in the rainy season, then even worse, of course. So the roads. What about railways? A lot of the mining products, bauxite, manganese, etc., this goes on trucks on the roads. And it's a safety issue, first and foremost. But the roads take a pounding. They're not really designed for these heavy loads and high volumes. So I think rail and our South African firms are international leaders in building roads, building railways. So I think there we could play a role. Dams, each area needs to have proper water. So I think we can assist there in terms of the civil engineering on that front. Mining, of course, we know with the gold price being as high as it is, I think there should be some renewed interest in mining.
In mining.
Yes. But in areas traditionally not yet explored. So, we know around the areas where all the mines tend to be around Tarkwa and Abuasi. Great. But further up north, there are massive mineral deposits, say in the Upper West. So there's opportunity to expand mining for firms, exploration firms first and foremost, and then the miners themselves. So, and this assists with the growth of jobs and prosperity in areas which are thus far underserved. So I'd like to see South African firms taking their services further afield than Greater Accra and the areas where we know typically they can make money, because Ghana is well endowed with mineral.
A lot of resources. With
minerals, yes. So that's for sure. The technology, we have global leaders in all kinds of tech. So I think, again, the ability for our firms to play a leadership role in any of the sectors that they choose is there. But sadly, we're going to have to overcome the deficit which is built up over the last, say, 10 years, where South African firms are negative about Ghana as an economic destination. So there's a lot of work to be done to restore confidence, not just in South African investors, but in international investors in general. If we're at a 17-year low, it tells you something.
So it means that we have a lot of work to do as a country to draw people, into the market. Let's talk about the potential. So for Ghanaian entrepreneurs who want to plug in, you've talked about agriculture, mining, banking, and all of that. How can Ghanaian entrepreneurs practically partner with, or in which sectors can Ghanaian entrepreneurs partner with South African, businesses and all of that?
Yeah.
In which sectors?
Well, I think it always starts with understanding your capabilities as a young entrepreneur. If I'm a young guy coming out of, or a young girl coming out of university, and I've got a good first degree, and I say, well, I'm going to be a miner, I'm going to own a gold mine, that's probably not realistic, But you might say, if I want to start a small business, rather start with a problem. Say, what kind of problem could I solve with my skills? Or if I was able to improve and expand my skill set, what problems could I solve there? So in that case, I would look at a sector like agriculture. What worries me when I speak to young entrepreneurs here, and I do it all the time, they're all tech entrepreneurs. And they're all bright, they're all clever, and the tech that they have looks quite reasonable, but they haven't really grasped that they need to solve a problem with this tech. Tech is only a tool. Tech isn't the business. There has to be the big problem to solve. And tech is just one of the tools you use. So I would say you want to look at a business where you can get your hands dirty, you can get involved on day one and start to produce something. Now, if I speak about agriculture, it's not just about putting seeds in the ground and growing something and then harvesting it. That's the farmer. But you could be in the value chain. You could be in logistics. You could be in delivery, say. You could be in storage, cold storage.
So the entire value chain.
The entire value chain offers opportunities. There's a plethora of fintechs around which offer payment solutions, etc.
Yeah.
There are probably too many, quite frankly. And one just copies the next. So you probably only need 3 of them, and the other 97 don't need to exist. And I'm quite skeptical about this and quite negative, because the copycat thing actually really doesn't work. As soon as there's 3 or 4 of them doing the same thing, there's only very few people using the solution. So you don't have enough clicks to constitute a business. So that's where I say I caution young entrepreneurs not to come and tell me how clever you are, because most of them make the mistake of trying to wow me with their brain power and how clever their technology is. But when I ask them some very basic questions about, the size of the market, the problem you're solving, the sustainability, it immediately falls flat. And I say to them, guys, go get a job at one of the banks rather. You're better suited, because your business, as good as you might think it is, it's simply not going to make it. And they don't like to hear that. But if we're going to assist and partner, it's better to be brutally honest, because that is the sincerest form of kindness, really. It's no use pretending and trying to pump them up, and it's all hot air. So the tech is vital, but there's a lot of it that's out there already. You don't need to go and develop your own app to have the tech. All you need to do is go and pay a monthly subscription somewhere from in the world, and you have it. And then you focus on the real issues, which are, what is this problem I'm solving? So I keep bringing entrepreneurs back to, the tech is not your business. It's just one part of it, an important one. You need some money. You need a finance. You need to understand how to manage your cash flow. You need to understand that if no one knows about your company and the brand, they're not going to support you. if you have food products, you need to have proper accreditation. So it's no use saying my stuff is great if you haven't been to the necessary agencies like the FDA's one, and have the certificates to say that your product's acceptable. So there's multi-faceted approach, which for the entrepreneur initially is frustrating, difficult, and almost impossible to navigate. And I understand that, because if I think back many decades to when I started, it was quite similar. We just didn't have tech in those days. The extent of our technology was a fax machine and a beeper, which you've probably not even heard of before. That was the extent of our technology. So if you overlay all of these things, the tech is the cool stuff. So it grasps everyone's attention. And this other boring stuff that has to be done gets neglected, and it's, as I say, equally important. Yeah.
So you think that there's a fundamental problem that must be solved in terms of how young people even see business as a whole before they can even partner with, with companies in South Africa and all of that, isn't it? Is that what you mean?
Well, if you're going to set up as an entrepreneur, you must have a business that makes sense.
Right.
Even if it's a micro business, a one-man shop, that's fine. You need to be serving a market that needs your service. You don't have to be changing the world, but the space that you play in, you must say every day, I'm able to earn my keep. Whatever money is required to make the business tick over, save some money so that I can roll it over to buy the new stock or service that I need. It comes back to serving a fundamental a market, a need, and it's essentially solving a problem in any of the sectors. So then it's a question of how do you attract the attention of a South African firm. And that's where the Chamber plays an important role, where we provide linkages. And on that, I can use as a practical example, all of last week, we had 10 South African companies that were in Ghana for the week. The previous week, they had been in Nigeria. So the Department of Trade and Industry in South Africa brought up a delegation across different sectors. And they had one-on-one meetings that were pre-arranged with Ghanaian firms already before they got here. We had a conference on Thursday at Labadi Beach Hotel, which was incredibly well. Yes, and we had 150 participants.
Wow.
And there were various keynote speakers from different sectors. And then in the afternoon, it was given over to networking. One-to-one business meetings. Right. So young Ghanaian entrepreneurs were able to sit with these companies, discuss what the South African firm does.
And that was facilitated by the Chamber?
That was done by the South African High Commission.
Okay.
Here, that also plays a pivotal role in terms of being one of the institutions that assists. But the essential day-to-day commercial activities are carried out by the Business Chamber.
Okay.
But in this case, the entire event was a DTIC initiative from South Africa through our High Commission, with the Business Chamber providing the entrepreneurs and invitations to the young Ghanaian entrepreneurs to come and enjoy the day. So that's one example. But then the Business Chamber itself is operating day in and day out. As I said, it's 25 years of serving not just South African companies who are our members, but young Ghanaians or any Ghanaian company that's looking to expand to South Africa. And we have different events. We have different networking programs. We will be working with your organization quite soon on the first cohort that starts in the Tech Hub. So we provide these day-to-day linkages, their programs. We take Ghanaian firms to South Africa for various programs. There's the the very well-known ones are the mining in Durban in February.
Okay.
There's the IT Africa Expo in November. And you pick a sector, there are these expos in South Africa just about every month where Ghanaian firms rather can go down and walk around and matchmake with hundreds, if not thousands, of South African firms. So we assist there. We also work with very good government institutions like the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. We have a very good working relationship with them.
Right.
We work hand in hand, but with other agencies as well.
Okay, can you share examples of some Ghanaian firms that you've supported to expand to South Africa and all of that?
Yes, so we have a small shea butter business that is a member of our chamber, and we've assisted Betty, the owner, placing her products in the big retail chains, like ShopRite, that's up here, but there's several big chains like that. And that's, for me, is a success story.
Okay.
We have a couple of travel firms, travel agencies that are our members, that are regularly sending delegations of people down to South Africa, whether it be on holiday or for corporate travel. And they've developed quite a network of travelers in South Africa, working with the whole travel industry down there, hotels, guest houses, restaurants, where they're able to put package tours together for Ghanaians going down there. So if you're a first-time traveler and you're nervous, we have a couple of excellent travel agencies that put these tours together. So I think that, for me, is testimony of entrepreneurs that have really taken time to understand the South African travel sector.
Right.
It helps, of course, that we now have visa-free travel between the two countries. And I think that's where, at a diplomatic level, it assists. Overnight, it made business a lot easier for some of these companies, especially if you're in the travel space.
Right.
Yeah. So there are a couple of others that I could speak about, but I think for now, if we talk about Betty and her shea butter business, that for me is a huge success story. And the travel business, moving people to and from, I think is good.
Okay.
But I wish in a year or 2 or 3 years' time, I could talk about 10 other Ghanaian businesses that are now actively plying their trade in South Africa.
So roughly, if you want to mention the number, how many can you mention? The number of businesses that you help partner with South African firms or do business in South Africa?
It's dozens every year. It's not in the hundreds, unfortunately, but certainly in the tens. It's up to each company then to be good enough to perform.
Right.
Don't forget, it's not the chamber's responsibility to run anyone's business for them. But to provide linkages, to provide entree, to provide information of programs that are ongoing, and that companies take advantage, probably in the tens every year.
Okay.
So, 50 to 100 every year, I think, is not a bad effort.
Okay.
But I'm not worried about how many it is. It's really how many we're able to say, graduate and actually say, you know what, my business is now a sustainable one.
Right.
Every month we're getting sales. Our customers are paying us. There's a growing demand for our product or service. For me, that would be the exciting metric.
Okay. Other than just the numbers.
Yeah, for at least for now, we can boast a few that are actually have business every month, and it's a big part of their business. In the shea butter business, it's 100% of her business, so that's important. For the travel agencies, it's a percentage. If it was 0 before, now it's much more. So
right.
we can show some growth and sustainability there. That's great. But I'd like to see 10 firms saying, from nothing, we now have this coming out of South Africa.
Right.
I will then be very proud, because that shows that we're graduating inquiries into ongoing sustainable
businesses. Right. Okay, well, exactly 36 minutes after 9, and this is a business breakfast on Zed 101.9 FM. This morning, I'm sitting down with Mr. Grant Weber. He's the president of the Ghana South Africa Business Chamber, and he is helping us have this conversation this morning. The big question we're asking is that how can Ghana South Africa trade relations support local businesses? Because at the end of the day, we want to see businesses do very well. And so that is what we're discussing this morning. If you have questions, you have comments, please feel free to send me a WhatsApp on 0544321019, 0544321019. Maybe you have a question for Mr. Grant Weber. Feel free to send me a WhatsApp. You can also call me on 03039566641, 03039566641. The phone lines are open now. Feel free to call in and then ask a question. 03039566641, and then we give you the opportunity to share your thoughts. We're streaming live on Facebook at ZFMGH, so drop a comment under the live stream and we will read them for you. Also do same on YouTube at Z Multimedia, and we'll read your comments for you. All right, Grant, so let's continue the conversation. So of course, every partnership comes with its own hurdles. What are the hurdles you've seen in trade relations between Ghana and South Africa? Is there maybe some structures, what exactly have you seen as some of the hurdles that are in the chain?
Yes, structures in terms of institutional structures, government, yes. Ghana's legal framework and institutional framework is in place, and if you read through any of the particular laws, they're pretty good. They're well thought out, they're well structured, and in terms of international law have standing. So there's no real issue with lack of structures. So there are no institutional voids. That's what the academic terminology is.
That, right.
But there are institutional discrepancies. Inconsistencies.
How do you mean?
So the GIPC Act, as an example, governs all foreign firms that enter Ghana. We register, we bring in our foreign capital, the minimum requirement, and we're certified. And the GIPC Act has certain stipulations which protect foreign investment from being overturned overnight, say. However, the way it's applied, we don't, as foreigners, have the benefit of that protection. A good example is the local content law, which has been introduced a few years ago into strategic sectors. As an example, the mining sector. There were half a dozen South African firms doing very important engineering work and mining services. And when the new local content law came in, all of those firms exited the country. So there was no respect for the legacy investments. So that is one example of the law is there, but then how it's applied is something which is a concern. And when these firms leave and go home, having lost tens of millions of dollars in aggregate, their story to other potential entrants is a negative one. So the ability for foreign firms to understand and navigate Ghana's institutional landscape is important. As I say, on the books, the laws are pretty much okay. It's just then how they're applied. And when you have regime change, people come with different ideas. There are some legal changes coming across the board, including the GIPC Act, by the way. And I do refer to that regularly because that is the act that governs foreign investors. So it's an important one in our lives. I think the Chamber has played a role in the last 7 years trying to advocate for certain changes to the law. And President Mahama, in his recent trip to Japan and Singapore, was quite clear that there's certain positive changes coming within that act, which is to be applauded. It will attract more smaller firms to come and try and do business here, and I think that's what Ghana does need. Yes, we need big firms for mega projects, absolutely, but we need 1,000 small firms doing JVs with local partners, creating jobs. So I think that will be one of the hurdles which will be removed once the GIPC Act is actually, the new one is in place. So understanding local culture is vital, clearly, understanding how to do business here. You can do business on your own in terms of the law. It's quite allowed. But I think it's always prudent to have local partners. Even if the law doesn't require it, I think it makes sense on any number of different levels to have local partners. So then the trick is to find not always the best local partner, but the local partner that provides a good fit with your company, culturally, or from a skill requirement level or networking, etc. So you don't need to have the best partner, because that could take many years to find. What you need is a good partner who's reliable, who's keen to learn, and who you are compatible with. And I think ultimately, if it's based on respect and mutual respect, I think that's a far more important platform than looking for the best partner.
Which will take forever. Well, so, I mean, of course, the focus of our conversation largely is also to help businesses here expand to South Africa. So what kinds of, I mean, you talk about the structures that are affecting the business that are coming. So let's try and flip it a bit and talk about some of the structures or some of the logistic issues. I know financing is also a problem. What are some of the things that local business must prepare for if they want to expand to South Africa?
Well, cost is obvious. If you're a small firm, access to finance is always hard. You don't need to be a Ghanaian small firm to struggle to attract finance. I think you're a small firm in any country in the world, it's always the most difficult thing. So that is an issue. But just starting out and really trying to understand how long it takes before you've sold a single product or service. It's very costly and takes a long time. And you need to be able to finance this before you're able to go to the bank to get a loan. The bank's not going to give you a loan before you've sold anything. So you need to be able to have some savings. If you really just need to travel to South Africa for, say, a week, to go to an expo. The expo could be free access. You register online, that's fine. So you know if you spend a week there, you could pick up some very good leads for partnership. But you need to pay for your plane ticket. That's $1,000. And you need to stay, if you don't have friends there where you might be able to sleep on their couch, you need to stay in a hotel. And then, you know, you need a taxi and you need to eat every day. So, you know, you're looking at, say, $2,000 for a week.
I don't think that's even enough. But
yes, it could even be more.
It could even more.
So, but when you convert that to cedis, it's quite a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And if you're an individual, you're not going to go once and spend $2,000 or $3,000 and your business is running. You might have to go several times.
True.
And so there are costs associated with it. You need to have some basic online presence, a website. You need brand. You need all of that done. These days it's a lot cheaper, but you still have to have it done. And it doesn't come for free necessarily. So in the build up to getting your business off the ground, I think that's always the hardest part. I think in the last, say, 4 or 5 years, the incubators and accelerators have done an incredible job with young entrepreneurs that have got good ideas. They go to these boot camps and they really get good assistance with all of these things that I'm speaking about. And it's like going back to school, and you learn, how to count and read and write in the commercial context. It's really about starting a business from scratch. How to do a budget, how to understand cash flow, and how to understand how the cost of time. So I think for entrepreneurs, it's this cost of time thing. From the beginning to when you sell your first product is where your dream dies for just about everyone. If you can't get from your dream, this real vision, to selling your first product, that's where 9 out of 10, that's the graveyard. So it's how do we get you through the graveyard, get you to sell your first product. Then it's a whole new set of headaches when you're up and running, but at least you're up and running. So how do we get you through this business phase before you've actually got a business? It's just an idea.
I see. So you talk about financing as a major one. Is there anything related to logistics as well? And while you try to answer that, do you think that there could be some collaborations between Ghana and South Africa to deal with those problems?
You mean overcome the costs?
The cost
of
and
moving?
all of those things.
Yes.
Or those ones are things we can't do anything about?
No, I think that's a good question, and it's a valid one. If you're a South African firm and you're coming up to Africa on various of these programs, the Department of Trade and Industry has funding available. You need to apply. They're very strict criteria. But if you are up in Africa trying to promote your business and your products, provided you go through the process properly and the DTIC is happy with your application, they fund the most part of your trip. Now, I'm not sure that there's anything tangible like that in place for Ghanaian entrepreneurs wanting to go somewhere else in Africa. So I think there's something to be learned there from South Africa's Department of Trade and Industry, where they have funded logistics, travel costs for their South African firms coming up to anywhere, not just Africa, by the way, in the world.
That's awesome.
We're focused on Africa, especially because of the sort of upward trend and trajectory now in the intercontinental free trade area. I think the ability to promote and grow intra-African trade, I think, is a good one and important. So I think the various government agencies in Ghana need to be looking at how they have programs where they can fund entrepreneurs in this way. I think that's very helpful.
All right. Now, you talk about AFTA. I mean, and a lot of things have been said about AFTA, but in practical terms, how can Ghanaian businesses use AFTA to reach not just South Africa, but even the wider Southern Africa market? How can we leverage AFTA like that?
Well, let me start by saying I think the AFTA concept is an excellent one as a philosophy first, and then as an organizing framework and an enabler. I think it's great.
It's great. Okay.
However, these things are often stillborn. If you are using that right now as one of the main pillars of your business, you're in trouble. Why do I say that? As noble and objective as what the AFTA framework has, it's slow, it's laborious, and it's still going to take a very long time until we see real, tangible growth. There are green shoots now, but it's incredibly frustrating. Most of the talk on the ground is negative. You can't just say it's great and that's it. So whilst it's okay, you know, I still think we're decades away from this thing being something tangible.
What will it take? What will it take to make it tangible?
I'm always skeptical of government agencies running things. The minute we move from the main driver of this being government agencies, in this case the AU, although the Secretariat sits here in Accra, you know, it's an African Union initiative. Government agencies are notoriously bad at running things. They're very slow, they're inefficient. A noble objective, fine. So I think when private sector muscle gets behind it and there's a real momentum that gathers, I think then we'll start to see something. But other impediments, you know, we want free flow of goods and services, but we don't have free flow of people. So
how do you mean?
Well, visas, restrictions on travel. Some countries are very easy and automatic. Between Ghana and South Africa, that's a great example. We now have 90-day visa-free travel both ways. It's only a very recent thing. I think it's been 18 months. But before that, it was very difficult for Ghanaians to get visas sometimes.
True.
But in other countries, between countries, it's almost impossible. So you want to push your goods one way, but you can't get there yourself. So that is a real impediment, and that has to be thought about and solved. So don't get me wrong. I am skeptical, and as I'm a businessman, I need to be, because time is money. And when you're trying to deal with government agencies and individuals within these frameworks, it's tough. Nothing seems to happen. And when I speak to other actors, it's the same thing. It's essentially negative. So there's a lot of work to be done, even though I think it's a very good idea.
All right. Okay. Our time is almost up, and so we will go very soon. But I want to ask, is South Africa a natural gateway market for Ghanaian entrepreneurs?
It should be. It should be. So how do we go from theory to practice?
Yeah.
And I think that's the trick.
Sorry.
Thank you. It should be. So I think, in fact, for SADC region, like we have the ECOWAS region up here in West Africa, South Africa is certainly a pathway. All or most trade comes through South Africa into the region. So that's something to be exploited. But, you know, South Africa has its own problems domestically. The government institutions themselves are struggling with efficiency. Many of the basic services are broken down. So again, we're talking about these things hypothetically, because a number of the key institutions that you might be relying on for help simply don't work. So I spoke about, you know, Ghanaian, the institutional framework earlier. Equally, the South African institutional framework as we sit today is really in a state of disrepair. Different challenges from Ghana, but challenges nevertheless, and they do impact on the entrepreneur's day-to-day life. But look, South Africa's kind of lost its premiership to the continent. I think depending on the metric that's used, we're still the biggest economy in Africa, more or less. I think it's interchangeable with Nigeria. Egypt is up there. But where we were far ahead not so long ago. We've kind of slipped in the league tables, and that tells a story. I think we're not as competitive as we once were, and that's a fact. You can read any economic report on that, and it would bear out what I'm saying. So South Africa's got its own house to get in order. The government has been clear on that themselves. So again, it's not a secret, and it's not only my view. The commentators are speaking about these things all the time. But nevertheless, the economy at large is sophisticated. Just about all of the sectors and industries are really the best in Africa at what they do. There's a resilience, there's a can-do attitude. So the private sector has said, well, we're not relying on public sector institutional framework for our survival. And I think that is right. I think the private sector says, this is the jungle, and if we want to stay alive every day, we need to get up and and do what we have to stay alive. And as I think in that, if you look at the firms that I mentioned at the opening segment of our program today, those brands are in Ghana of the biggest and the best. And if you then go down to Johannesburg, when you get out of the OR Tambo airport, you see all of these massive billboards with these companies, and you realize there are probably hundreds of thousands of these firms where we just have sort of a dozen of them up here. But these are big, strong, excellent companies. So should be a gateway, should be doing better, but nevertheless still very, very important.
There's still some more work to be done there. Let's talk about investment and financing, then we can wrap up. So I want to know which kinds of financing is more attractive to South Africa. Is it venture capital? Is it so venture capital, supplier credit, equity stakes? Which ones are most attractive to South African investors?
Well, I would say for Africa, the advent of private markets, which is what you've spoken about, venture capital for early stage companies, or private equity for later stage, is absolutely crucial. 10 years...
Did I say venture capital? Joint ventures, I meant to say.
Yes, so I think it could be part of the same. Up till a decade ago, you relied just about on banks for your finance or your family and friends, or combination of both. Well, I'd say in the last decade, private markets have become far more active, and there are many billions of dollars now at play from venture capital firms and private equity, from micro-sized firms where you could attract, get a $5,000 investment, whether it's debt or equity, up till, a couple of billion and everything in between. So I think having equity financing now through private markets is crucial. And, that sector is really doing what banks can't do. And so that's good. Joint ventures are an essential product of the private markets. So if you have a business idea that makes sense, a fund would say, fine, we will give you the money you need, and then you negotiate a percentage in the business. So you then have a partner. So that is a joint venture. You have a fund which takes a share in the business, and the founders retain whatever stake they can negotiate. And then as the business grows, you have subsequent fundraising rounds, as they're called. It does mean that the founders dilute their share, so your share goes down. The funds or the subsequent shareholders come in, they give you their money, but they require a stake in the business. But it's shareholding. it's a joint venture, just of a different nature, but it's more or less the same. And then after a period of time, it used to be 5 years that say, we'll put our money in, you'll go from zero, and they love to throw terms like 10x your business. In other words, you'll go from zero or something small to 10 times your business valuation, and then we will exit. In other words, we'll sell our shares. Someone will buy it. That's the model. From nothing, more or less a decade ago, the African Venture Capital Association, the South African Venture Capital Association, and more latterly the Ghana Venture Capital Association is doing very good work. And I think the GVCA here in Ghana must be applauded. They're doing incredible work promoting private markets. And even as pension and allocation of pension funds now, the law before said zero, where I think now the new laws either coming out or have just come out, stipulate a percentage of pension funds that can have private equity money in it, where it was zero before. They now have fought really hard in terms of the advocacy to say private markets should form part of a pension fund. So that's good news. It's early stages in West Africa for venture capital and private equity. There's still too few funds, and there's still too little money allocated. But it's better than zero. So I think these early pioneers in this space, I think are, for me, are champions. I think they're heroes. And we need more of them. And I think we will get more. They're learning as they go along, and more money's becoming available as success stories hit the media. So I think the private markets phenomenon going forward plays a vital role in Ghana seeing more and more small firms emerging from nothing.
All right, Grant, we have to go now. Are there any final words you want to give to entrepreneurs and young business owners or local businesses listening to us this morning?
Yes, I think if you're a young Ghanaian of any educational level, quite frankly, there's never been a better time to be exploring the opportunity of owning your own business. There's never a perfect time. There's never an easy time. But right now, through the democratization of markets, through easy access of technology and partnerships and accelerators, incubators like there are now, now's your time. Keep your wits about you, though. It's not easy, and it's often heartbreaking. I know because I've been through it as a young entrepreneur many decades ago, but if you survive, even if you don't, you have a story to tell your grandkids one day. But if your business does succeed, your stories are just so much sweeter.
All right, Grant, thank you very much for your time. Really grateful that you came this morning, and thanks so much for sharing those insights. I want to know, how can people contact the chamber, or do you have social media platforms, or you want to put those details out so anybody at all can reach out?
Yes, so the Ghana South Africa Business Chamber is available on all social media channels. Just Google the name and everything pops up. It's easy enough. But I think we're going to be around in your studios often now as we assist the media house with the tech hub downstairs. I'm hoping that I can be invited back here on your show and others, and not just me. We have many of our members who could provide even better insights to me and maybe even more fun and exciting entertainment for your listeners. But I think there's a partnership growing between your media house and our business chamber. Not just our business chamber, but all of our partners that we bring with us. So we'll be around.
Sure. So we'll get in touch a bit more from time to time, and so we can have some more conversations. But thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.
All right. To partner, to innovate, and also to grow beyond our borders, right? And we heard today about some promising sectors: mining, agriculture, manufacturing, and technology. And we've also seen, we've been reminded of the vital role the Ghana South Africa Business Chamber and the AFTA framework can play in bridging those gaps and also unlocking wider markets for all of us. And importantly, we've discussed the challenges from logistics to financing, and that we must come together. But of course, the key takeaway, or the real takeaway, is that the future of Ghana-South Africa trade is in our hands. And if we position ourselves well, if we stay resilient and build the right partnerships, our businesses can not only thrive locally, but also compete regionally and globally. So that's how we go. My name is Nitrebi Hammond. I'm back again tomorrow at exactly 6:15 a.m. Please do well to keep listening to Zed 101.9 FM. And when you think Ghana, think Zed. I'll see you tomorrow.